Right. So I think we are now on. So welcome everyone. Thank you all for joining our 6th Women in Animation Bay Area chapter YouTube Q&A. We hope with this series to provide education, resources, and a little entertainment to the amazing women, transgender, non-binary, and underrepresented gender identity communities who want to pursue and thrive in the animation industry. So please subscribe and put down topics or questions in the chat you want us to talk about, and we will do our best to answer them. Today we're chatting with Lauren Morrison, a filmmaker and 3D artist with an MFA in experimental animation from CalArts. She's directed a number of animated shorts and was previously an assistant professor of animation and visual effects at SAE Expression College. Currently, she's an immersive artist at Google on the Google Duo team. So Lauren, can you tell us a little bit about what you do as an immersive artist at Google and how you got there?
Yeah, absolutely. And just thank you so much for reaching out to me and having me on this program. I've been a member of Women in Animation since probably 2011 or so, and I just think it's a fantastic organization. So yeah, I'm an immersive artist at Google. An immersive artist is kind of a catch-all term that describes a lot of different 3D art work that happens at the company. And it's kind of like a Google-specific term. I don't know that there's a lot of like other tech companies that even use that language specifically. Google uses it because it kind of helps internally describe the job ladder that you're a part of. So it helps with like performance reviews. You're kind of part of the general like UX design team of artists, and this is kind of like a subset of those. So as an immersive artist, specifically on the Duo team, I build augmented reality camera effects. So all of those effects that you've seen where it like, you know, puts like kitty ears on you or makes you look like you've turned into a potato or something. I work on that specifically for Duo video calling. So when you call your boyfriend who lives on the other side of the country, or when you call your grandma, at some point in the conversation, if you want to like, you know, kick back and have a little fun, you can turn yourself into a rainbow tiger and continue the conversation that way for a little bit.
That is amazing. I personally loved the reindeer one that was on Google Duo a while ago. So I always used that one. But so how did you get to where you are now at Google?
Yeah, so I think for me it was kind of like a winding and roundabout path. Some people like are just rock stars right out of the gate, and you get your internship at the big company, and then it like rolls right into the big job, and then like you've arrived and you're 22 and you're amazing. For me, it didn't quite happen like that. And it's, I mean, it's like awesome for people who it does work out so well for, although I'm also happy with like the path that did lead me to where I am now, because it's meant I've gotten to try out a lot of different things. I initially went to undergrad at the University of Wisconsin. I grew up in Wisconsin for fine art, painting and sculpture. And then kind of towards the tail end of that, I realized, or I took some animation classes and realized that I just really, really enjoyed animation. I started by just doing these little flash animations, and I made this little kind of flash animated video game. And for me, it kind of like just hit all parts of my brain. It was like kind of technical, and then it was also kind of like narrative based, telling a story, and then also artistic and just kind of like meticulous and just a lot of fun. So from there, I ended up applying to grad school. So I went to CalArts for animation, got my master's of fine art there. And initially I was working in the stop motion animation industry. It was kind of a natural progression from having this background that was so strong in like actual physical materials with all the sculpture and all the painting. But after kind of working along that route for a little while, not even all that long, after about a year, I kind of realized I wasn't as passionate about it as I thought it would be. And it's kind of, it's a hard area to work in because it does there's a little less security in stop motion animation than there are in some other fields. It's kind of boom and bust. Like everybody will get hired for a project and then everybody will get fired at the end of the project. And there's not usually a lot of like 401ks or benefits. So it's just, you have to be like really, really passionate to make it work. And for me, it wasn't quite there. And I like working digitally anyway. I like it as much or more than working physically. Like, with physical building materials.
For sure.
Yeah. So I started out as a compositor. Like I did compositing on an indie horror film. I landed on this like really cool gig where I got to do some animation for The Little Prince randomly through this little boutique studio in Los Angeles. And then when I decided to take like a hard turn into 3D art, I wasn't getting a lot of offers just because my portfolio wasn't there. So I wasn't really able to like sell myself in that field. So I ended up teaching for 3 years at SAE Expression College while I was kind of building up my portfolio and kind of like realigning my goals and where I wanted to be and where I wanted to go. And after teaching for 3 years, I ended up getting the job at Google. I started as a contractor, which then rolled into the full-time job.
Got it. Okay. That is amazing. Circling back a little bit, I just want to talk about why you decided to go for a master's degree. So do you mind kind of touching on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I graduated from undergrad with my painting degree, I don't know, I think as I was in undergrad, like doing fine art, I kind of had like a general idea that if I work really hard and I get all A's, I'm going to get out in the world and then things will just work out and I'll just get a great job and everything, I'll live happily ever after, no big deal. But then I kind of got out and realized like, well, no one's really hiring like painters, sculptors. I mean, they are. Absolutely, you can get paid in that area. But like I don't know, I couldn't find my niche. So while I was an undergrad, I'd started like kind of dabbling in web design and I had a student job as a web designer, hired at like a small web design place and I really hated it. And it's not that web design's bad. It's just that like the specific place I was working at was like, like a little sketchy. It was a Craigslist job. Like, I'm glad that's not really a thing anymore. Don't get jobs on Craigslist. Yeah, but then through the course of that, I'd also just moved to LA. Like I'd gone from Wisconsin to Los Angeles. My boyfriend at the time, husband now, had gotten into law school at UCLA. And we decided together, like, we want to be in California because it's like the golden land and, there's streets are lined in gold and there's all these opportunities. It's amazing. So, I got there, I was in LA, I had a job I didn't like. And it just felt like in order to really get where I want to be, in order to get the kinds of jobs that I was seeing online, like texture artist at Naughty Dog Studio making video games, that sounds amazing. How do you do that? And the way you do that, or one way to do that, the way that felt the most straightforward to me was to go back to grad school. And also, I kind of had an idea in my head that I might want to teach someday, and having a master's degree at a lot of teaching jobs is a requirement. So it seemed pretty natural.
So eventually, not now, but would you ever want to go back into teaching?
Yeah, actually. I've been in talks with Academy of Art. I might go back and see if I can teach like one class a week at some point. I could also imagine at some point, maybe when I'm a little older, if I'm sick of working in tech or sick of working in studios, I could imagine transitioning back into teaching full time. Working with students is really great. It feels like in a very direct way, you're able to like help people and influence people and like have a positive impact on people's lives. So it's a very kind of rewarding place to be.
Yeah. No, you definitely talked a little bit about being an assistant professor at SAE Expression College and starting a program where you had people from all the animation studios come in, and that was really amazing to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of a great thing about, at least when I was teaching at SAE Expression College, and I think at most colleges, like people want to help students, you know? Like, I think there's a lot of people in the industry, there's like kind of this urge to want to like give back. Like you think about the people who helped you when you were first starting out and like how much like love and appreciation you have for like just the little things that they might not have even thought of. So there's a lot of people that do want to give back when given the opportunity. So when I was at Expression College, I ended up working with a few Pixar artists and starting to bring people in to work one-on-one with students and mentor them and like review their work and their portfolios, which was a great way to meet a lot of interesting people and hopefully help out a lot of our students who otherwise were getting kind of like getting kind of stuck in a vacuum where you have like the same 5 teachers again and again and again. And it really helps to like break out of that.
Yeah, I feel like it's all about networking, just finding the people to talk to figure out which way you need to, which way you need to go. And if you're actually interested in a specific topic.
That is very true. It's very true. It's also very true that you just need to work so hard and like take the advice once it is given, you know? I think some people like miss that part where, you know, it's not enough to just like meet everybody at Pixar. That's not going to get you a job at Pixar. But if you meet like, you know, the people who are doing the things that you're really interested and really fascinated in, and if they have the time to like look at any of your work and give you advice and feedback, and then you go home and just put your head down and work really, really hard for a really, really long time and take all of their advice and then maybe come back and ask for more advice. And if they can see that progression and see that passion in you and like see that, you know, you have what it takes and you care, then it's so easy for them to recommend you for a job. If it comes to that, you know, if something's available, if that's still something you want to do at that point.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. That's really great to hear. Because so one of the things I wanted to ask you is for undergrad students, would you recommend getting a master's degree? Because it is expensive. It is very expensive. And I want to kind of know where you stand on like if it's better to get a master's degree or if it's better to try and network or if it's better to do something else that I haven't thought of at all.
Oof. It's such a tough one because for me, I do feel like my master's degree opened so many doors that were closed to me when I first landed in LA. And it, you know, kind of set the foundation for the career that I have now. But at the same time, I was in kind of a privileged place. Like someone close to me had passed away and I had money from a life insurance policy. So I did not have to go into any debt to get my very expensive master's degree. But if I'd had to go $150,000 into debt, I probably wouldn't have done it. And I don't know where I'd be now. Maybe I'd be a web designer and maybe it'd be great, you know, but I really love what I do. But at the same time, there are definitely people, probably not as, well, no, there are definitely a lot of people who are able to like heads down do the work without the help of the school. Through finding, you know, organizations like Women in Animation, where you might be able to find people who are interested in mentoring you, even without the benefit of, you know, an expensive, prestigious degree. Because ultimately, the places that are hiring you, like, they want someone who can do the work. You know, they don't need, like, you know, the Yale educated, like, you know, gold star. It helps, unfortunately, to get people's attention sometimes if they see that pedigree on your portfolio, but you can still get around it. Like there was an animator who was part of our mentorship program at Expression College who had never, I don't think he ever went to school for it, but he had just kind of like, you know, networked and like sought out industry groups and just like went home, did the work, worked super hard, was really good, and got there. So you can do it. And I don't know that I could ever recommend someone going $150,000 into debt because as a student, it could take a lifetime to dig yourself out of that hole, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I think that really honestly sets a lot of people back. So like personally, my own 2 cents is to like network and actually do the work. But I think one of the biggest things is like finding time. If you do, once you graduate, if you are working in your day job and you're Batman by night, or not Batman, but
Sure.
yeah, exactly. But like doing what you love at night, it's really hard. It's really hard to like do a full work day and then come home and um have to. It's what you love, so it should be a lot of fun, but it's also like working 12 hours a day eventually gets grating. So I know that you were working a full-time job and also building your portfolio. How are you realistically able to do that?
Well, the job I had lent itself very well to being able to do that. When I first started teaching, before I taught any of the classes, before I really developed the syllabi and really kind of understood what I was doing, I was working really long hours, like 60, 70 hours a week, just like putting these lesson plans together and getting it all figured out. And when I was doing that, I was not working on my portfolio. But I was learning a lot, which helped quite a bit. Um, but as I kind of progressed and like got the classes dialed down, at a certain point, it was more like I was maybe working 30 hours a week.
Mhm.
And then I would have like afternoons off sometimes. I might have a morning off. For some semesters, maybe I'd have a whole day off once in a while. Like I might have my Thursdays off or something. And then I would just spend all of that time working on my portfolio. So for people who, like, if you're working a traditional 40-hour-a-week job, it is going to take a lot of discipline. Um, so it would help to possibly sign up for a class, sign up for a mentorship circle, find some way to help hold yourself accountable. So there's other people that are like, a little bit invested in what you're working on, to give you that like extra push to put in the hours in the evening and put in the hours on the weekend. Um, which is why, going back to that networking thing is important. More so than anyone that's ever gonna like, give you a job, just because it's like people who know what they're doing, who like kind of know what it takes for you to be able to get there and to help like hold you accountable.
Yeah, and I think one thing for me is that like I like to set my boundaries. So I work pretty early, so I get off around like 4:30, and then I can work on that. But I think it's important to have those boundaries. One for like work-life balance. If you really are like if you're already doing what you love, it's really important to have that work-life balance, to like have stuff outside of what you're doing to kind of inform your artistic style or what you're interested in. But I think it's also like if you are trying to get to what you love, I think you need to make sure that you're respecting like your own ideas of what you love and your time to work on how to get there.
Exactly. Yeah. If you're working as like an office manager by day, and like not to knock office managers, like that's, that's also like a valid, that's great. If you're working something that you're not as passionate about by day, you got to make sure that like at the end of the day at 5 o'clock, like you are off, like go home, relax for a minute, and then try to, at least a couple nights a week or one night a week or a weekend every week, like block out time that like that is when you work.
Mm-hmm.
And then also like be nice to yourself, still exercise, still like you like realize like you're not like a robot that just works, like take time
I
to be.
feel it's really important to be human. So like I know out here, for anyone watching who's not from California, the Bay Area, it's been really smoky outside. And today was the first day in like weeks that it hasn't been super smoky. So being able to go out there and get some fresh air was just absolutely amazing.
It was really special. Yeah, I went for a run before this and it was just there were so many people out.
Yes.
Like, so happy to be like not trapped inside finally.
Slightly blue sky.
Hey, I see this. I see the sun.
Yeah.
Great.
So for the work, just kind of redirecting this a little bit, For the work that you're creating on the side, if you are trying to get there, what is advice for making art for your portfolio to get a job in what you love?
So I think the first and foremost important point is to figure out like what is the job that you truly believe you will love. Because if you take kind of a scattershot approach where it's like, oh, texture artist, that sounds cool. Oh, animator, I could do that. Oh, visual development, look development, yeah, that all sounds great. That sounds great. And you're just like scattershot applying to everything. Like you're probably not gonna you might not get too far. But if you figure out like, okay, visual development, look dev, like I know that's the thing for me. Once you've made that decision, like that's the thing that I really want to focus on. It's probably going to be like a couple years of developing your portfolio and like talking to people in the industry. Like it's a big commitment, you know?
Yeah.
So you have to kind of know that like that's really what you want to focus on and that's what you have aptitude for. Like I've known people who've decided like, okay, I want to be a rigger. But then it's like for them, for some people, like it's like your brain doesn't quite like connect with that because there are people who it's just super, super easy for. So if you're trying to like force something that maybe is not like your highest level of aptitude, you might work really, really hard, like 3 times harder than the next person to get half as far. Maybe that's fine if it's truly something you truly, truly love. But if you could be just as happy as like a model or texture artist, like just as happy, like why bang your head against the wall for years and years and then ultimately you might still not get there. So figure out what you, sorry, I'm interrupting.
You are good. Yeah, I was just gonna mention, I think a lot of it is also like you don't know what jobs are out there. So it's like when you think of the animation industry, you think of like, okay, well, animation's in the name, so it's animation for me. But I know that as soon as I got into it, it was like, okay, I'm actually not a huge fan of actually animating. So, and then you have to go in and like figure out a whole bunch of different things of like, okay, what do I actually enjoy? And I think that journey is kind of beautiful in itself because, and you do really want to make time for that too, to make sure that this is what you're absolutely loving as well.
Yeah, because like I said, it's a really big commitment. Once you kind of pick a path and you start going down that path, it's going to be years of working nights and working weekends to like create this portfolio and to create this professional network and to learn the ins and outs and like all the tricks and all the, everything. And if you spend like a couple of years going down this route and then you realize, oh my gosh, I actually hate modeling and texturing, it's like, well, that's sad. Like you put so much time in, but you probably wouldn't get to that point. You'd probably figure out before a couple of years that you didn't actually like it that much. So yeah, finding out the thing that you actually like, also figuring out what's actually hiring, like look at a lot of job posts, and start like saving out, like I would even recommend like starting a Word doc or something, or like a spreadsheet, and just like save out like the bullet points for what they're looking for, find the commonalities, and like just make sure you are hitting those bullet points. And you don't know, you can't like know just on your own if you're hitting those bullet points. That's where reaching out to like friends and mentors and people in the industry who can like give you like unbiased, fair advice from their perspective if you're actually hitting those points is critical.
Yeah, so I know this is definitely easy to say, and like on the other end of it, it's like, okay, now I know, but it's really hard during it. So I'm wondering, do you have any words of encouragement or advice for students and young professionals that are doing that right now and they're trying to kick off their career?
Yeah, I would say, I think just about every kind of classically successful person that you could see who's like achieved kind of a high level of prominence in this industry has, a lot of years of really hard work and a lot of churn that they went through before they arrived where you see them now. And you got to realize, like, while they were, in the trenches, like putting their heads down and doing the work and just like, staying up late, working on the weekends, it probably felt I think for a lot of these people, it did feel a little bit hopeless. And for a lot of the people around them, it probably felt like a little futile and like a little like tragic. But like you have to like have the dream and the vision and realize like everybody kind of goes through this trough of despair before you like kind of start climbing the mountain on the other side. And just know like you are, you know, among friends and you're not alone.
I love that word that you used, churn, because I do really feel like that's a perfect description, because it's like if you're in the water and you're churning water, then it's kind of like you don't know if you're getting anywhere until you're there, you know. And I feel like one thing that you said to me a while ago was just do not give up, and I think that is so important. Yeah, I think that that's one of the biggest things is like if you know already what you love or like have an idea of where you want to go, just don't give up.
Right. Yeah. Don't give in to the despair.
Yeah.
Keep that North Star in front of you.
Yeah. So I think that reaching out to people when you're in that position, to people who are where you want to be, and asking how they got there is a really good way to kind of move forward or figure out like, okay, what is the exact pathway? And granted, it's different for everyone, but a pathway that you could possibly go. Do you have any tips or tricks for reaching out to people?
Yeah. So I think LinkedIn is a great place for that. Um, or possibly like if someone has an email on their website, I think is also a good place. In a pinch, possibly Instagram, but a lot of like prominent artists on Instagrams get inundated with direct messages and they might not even look at it. And it also feels a little impersonal. Like it's kind of, I think when you're like on your phone, it's hard to like really be smart, you know? Whereas like if it's on LinkedIn or if it's on an email, it's more likely you're going to be like sitting at a desk at a computer and you might have your coffee and you just have a moment to like relax. And then you get an email from someone and then you can like, you know, look at their links and, you know, kind of formulate actual like human intelligent thoughts. Yeah, I would try to like talk to people in ways that is not just like, well, maybe it's mostly not like Instagram, Facebook, stuff like that. That's like so phone focused. And then also be very respectful of people's time. Recognize that they might not get back to you, and that's okay. And also be clear about why you are connecting with them specifically. What is it about their portfolio and their resume that resonates with you? And like how you feel kind of a connection and an interest in learning more about them. Maybe stroke their ego a little bit, say like you have these things and they are like so beautiful and so fantastic and you know, like I'd love to learn how you got there. And I had one other point I was gonna make. Be specific about the kind of feedback that you're looking for. Don't just say like, how do I art and how do I don't know, I'm scared. Okay, never mind. Like don't do that. Be like, I am working on this specific project and I would love to hear your feedback. Or I saw this specific job post and I've applied for this kind of job in the past and I just haven't been able to get any traction. I haven't gotten any interviews. Do you have any idea like what I'm doing wrong? Like just be very specific because it's, you know, it's hard to answer general questions. It's easy to answer a specific question.
Yeah, I definitely, as soon as I was right out of college and networking, it was like I definitely went the route of going through Instagram. It's very easy to accidentally lowercase every single sentence that you write through Instagram.
Right.
So hearing that LinkedIn is a better way to go about it is super helpful. So let's switch this up a bit. I want to talk about what you do at Google. So, or kind of like how you function at Google. So, when you were hired at Google, it was on a contract. How did you turn that into a salaried position?
Right. And here, like as we're talking more about Google, I just want to be very clear. I'm talking about my personal experience. I'm not talking about like Google as a whole. And like, I'm not talking like on behalf of Google. I have to say that. So yeah, this is just my experience. And really it's going to be different for everybody because this is a really big company. We have like 100,000 employees. So yeah, so I started out as a contractor, which for me was great because actually like the full-time employee interview process is really, really difficult to kind of get your foot in the door and to navigate and to get traction in. Google gets something like, well, they get like a stupid amount of resumes like every day. And it's something like, I don't know, they only hire like 0.05% of people that apply for any job. So it's really hard to get in the front door. But it's actually not that hard to get a contractor job. So when I got, at least for me, it wasn't that hard. When I got hired as a contractor, a recruiter reached out to me. I wouldn't have even noticed the job posting. I probably wouldn't have even applied for the job posting because it was like a little confusing. I think the team that hired me, they didn't have much background in 3D. So even the way they'd formulated the job post, it was not as clear like what you would even be doing. Mm-hmm. But you know, a recruiter found me. Oh, and here's like a sidebar. Always be nice to recruiters. I think it's sometimes really easy, especially as you get further along in your career and you get a lot of like kind of cold messages from recruiters like on LinkedIn or whatever. Like they have a hard job and they have a really important job, you know? It's like for a lot of people, their careers started because a recruiter reached out to them. So just always be nice to recruiters and answer them too. You know, if someone messages you, even if you know, like, there's no way I'd ever get hired for this, this is not what I do, just say like, hey, sorry, I don't really do that. Thanks so much for reaching out. Best of luck. Like, just be nice. Anyway.
It's good to be like nice to everyone, but in like specific instances of like places where in society sometimes specific jobs aren't as valued as others, I think it's really important to kind of bring that up and say like, no, they are. And like the people that are doing them deserve to be respected and treated well also. And who knows? So always a good thing to do.
They're great people. Always be nice. Well, yeah, always be nice to everybody. Always be nice to recruiters. So yeah, a recruiter just like, you know, cold reached out to me. And I was like, yeah, Google, sign me up. So I sent over my resume. I don't think I had to write, I didn't have to write a cover letter for that, I don't think, which was nice. So then, so I sent her that and then like promptly forgot about it and heard nothing for like 3 months. And then 3 months later, I get a message back and she's like, they want to interview you. And I was like, for what? That's weird. Wait. Oh my gosh. Like, I don't think I even remembered what the job was. So I went in for the interview and it was just, and it's not going to be like this for everybody, but for this interview, it was very, very informal. Like I just met with the manager for the project, like in the Google coffee shop. So we're just like kind of sitting on these like nice plush chairs while people are like milling about. In retrospect, if I were to interview a contractor, I'm pretty sure I would book a conference room, but like the manager I had was like super chill. It was just like such a laid back interview. And as I walked out, I was like, I don't know if that went well. I'm not sure if I even really talked much about what I do, but like, okay. And we knew somebody, like we knew a few people in common. So like, well, that felt good. And then a few weeks later, I got a call from the recruiter saying like, they like you, they want to hire you.
Oh my God.
So exciting.
It's gotta be like an amazing moment.
It was, yeah, it was really amazing. And I was like so happy, like talking to the recruiter, like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I'm so happy. And it was just nice. I think like it kind of made her day a little bit that like I was so happy.
Yeah.
She was great. She ended up also becoming my HR manager as a contractor. So like the way, and this is kind of segueing into the way contracting works, at least at Google, and I think it's pretty similar at the other major tech companies. So you're not an employee of Google, you're not an employee of Apple or of Facebook. Instead, you're an employee of this like kind of HR firm, this agency. And whenever you have like questions about salary or about leave, or if you have to take time off for sick leave, or if you have to travel somewhere, you do it through your company. So you're always like talking to them first. So I did that for a year and a half, and that was, which is kind of an important timestamp at Google specifically, because at Google you cannot be a contractor for more than 2 years. The idea is at the end of 2 years, it's either like, well, at the end of 2 years, it's like you're no longer a temporary employee, right? Like, let's all be real. So if you're not a temporary employee, yeah, you should either be full-time at that point, or, you know, you should go find another job somewhere else, which is really tough. Like, I've known a lot of contractors who've gotten to the end of their 2 years and they haven't gotten a job offer, and it's been tough. One thing I think a lot of contractors, even at Google, are not aware of is you can apply for full-time jobs even without the full support. Yeah, even without the full support of your team, or if there's no role on your team for you, you can still apply for a full-time job. And it's still easier to get that full-time job when you're already there as a contractor than it would be as someone who's completely outside of the company.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I figure because you're already part of the culture in some way, I think at that point. So you have now worked as both a contractor at Google and now you are full time. What are the differences between those? Like, what is there anything that happens differently, or just like what's the cultural difference?
Right. Yeah, they let you into the back secret room where you see all their weird ceremonies. No, I'm just kidding.
Ceremony with weird hats.
Yeah. No, you actually do. They have like the noogler hat. So when you're a new Googler, you're called a noogler, because everything at Google has to be super cute, which is great. We're all super beautiful. This little noogler hat with a little beanie. But since I technically started at the time of COVID, so I didn't have my full orientation. It's usually this big like extravaganza where it's like 2 days where you do like team building exercises and you get your little hat. So I didn't get to do that, but that's fine because I was already kind of like a Google employee, so it wasn't all quite so shiny and new as it would be for someone who was brand new to the company.
Well, maybe they'll do like a nice little after COVID kind of thing where it's like, listen, we know you guys all started during COVID, so we're gonna like throw a huge extravaganza now.
And they might. Google likes to do parties, which is a fun thing about working at a tech company. So we'll see. So yeah, but the major changes in all like seriousness, probably the biggest change has been the way I work with external agencies and vendors. Because a lot of these effects that we build, we just don't have the capacity to build them in-house. We don't have like a full animation studio. It's really kind of just like the Lauren show plus like some engineers in Stockholm that are great. But like we just don't, we can't do like the level of production that we do in-house. So when I was a contractor, it was like I was not technically supposed to interact directly with the agencies. I was not supposed to give them direct feedback. So it had to kind of get filtered through other people, which was always a little bit of a hassle. Now that I'm full-time, it's much easier to coordinate with agencies. I've even been able to hire on a few new vendors, which has been nice. I feel like I have a little more control over all of the production and making sure I get like kind of the right people in place who can do the right jobs. And then also, if things ever go back to normal and we get to go back to the office, I'll be like invited to like the company parties. As a contractor, you're not invited to like the Christmas party. You can still go if a full-time employee on the team gives you their like extra ticket, because everybody gets 2 tickets. So a lot of contractors still go, but it's just like a little more of a pain. There's also like kind of team building like off-site activities where they might take the whole team to Disneyland. And if you're a contractor, you don't get to go to that. But as a full-time employee, hopefully I'll get to go to Disneyland.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that is definitely rough. I think it's like I always want to go to Disneyland. So I feel like if my whole team were going to Disneyland without me, I would be a little bit upset.
Yeah, and that's a real story. Like my whole team did go to Disneyland while I was still at the office. And like the group chat, they were like, "Where are you guys? We're on Pirates of the Caribbean." And I was like, "Well, I'm in front of my computer at my desk. Me." But it's
Oh
also
my
like,
God.
you know, but I mean, kind of the important thing to remember is like I would not have even been there if I'd been going through the front door as a full-time employee, because most of the 3D artists that they hire at Google are people who have like 10 years of experience at ILM or Pixar or something. Like that's their usual hiring pool. And that was not my background. So I would not have gotten in the front door. But by coming in as a contractor and just accepting like, it's okay not to go to Disneyland. Like this is like such an amazing perk. And like I still got to like go to the coffee shop and get my free coffee and my free pastry. Like, I was okay that day.
Yeah, I also feel like there's definitely some perks to staying as a contractor, just being able to kind of company hop and you get to like experience different cultures and expanding your skills. But one thing, because we're soon coming to the time where we're going to open it up to audience questions, I really wanted to talk about like when was the moment that you decided to stay in the tech industry, because you came from the animation industry really, and you got like really into everything. You were like in the stop motion scene, and then all of a sudden you were over at tech. So I kind of wanted to hear about why, like what was the moment when you decided to stay in the tech industry?
Cool. Yeah. So the moment when I decided to stay in the tech industry, so last summer, the summer of 2019, um, it was pretty unclear to me at that point that I would be able to successfully convert to full time. It was just kind of like the future, my future at Google seemed a little more uncertain. So I had started interviewing at other places. And I actually had an interview at Pixar, which went really quite well. Like I got through the phone screening, and then I ended up having two on-site interviews. I had a really good rapport with the recruiter. I did not end up getting the job. Um, but kind of at the end of the whole process, the recruiter who'd been so great through the whole time and so supportive of me was just like, please reach out and apply. If you ever see another job that catches your eye, like, just drop me a line, hopefully sooner rather than later. And I was like, oh my God, that's so nice. Thank you. Um, but then I think just a few months later, like kind of my footing on the team and my future started to look much brighter at Google, and it started to seem like I had a lot of support from my manager, and it felt like things were going in a really good direction. And even though I did see some jobs at Pixar that in another time I would have applied for, I didn't because it was just like I knew that at Pixar, it's such a streamlined pipeline that I would be doing a much more kind of specific role. I would be like modeling all day, or I'd be texturing all day, or I'd be rigging. And they actually have a really cool like rigging/character modeler job, which would actually probably be really fun because you get to both model and rig and sculpt and all the cool things. But at Google, I get to do everything. Like I get to design and art direct, and I get to work with artists from all over the world. And I get to find and bring in new artists, and I get to figure out weird little technical problems. I get to plan what is the future of augmented reality effects for Google video calling gonna look like. And it just feels like such a cool, exciting space to be in. And it just seems like it would be crazy. I mean, it doesn't seem like it would be crazy for me to leave this space that I'm in, to go model all day.
Yeah, I think it's also just because you're so passionate about it. And I know we were talking, if you guys should all get Google Duo, and try out all of the effects, because definitely it's my go-to to talk to my family.
And
Um,
you should all call your mothers. Go call your parents, have a nice video call, be a tiger. It's going to be great.
yeah. All right. One last question before we get to the audience questions. But What, from your perspective, what are the biggest differences between the animation and the tech industry?
Yeah. I think the biggest difference, well, one of the biggest differences, like kind of the pipeline in the animation industry is pretty established at this point, and there tend to be like more specific roles. And this is not always true, and certainly it's not true at smaller studios. But I think the roles are often a little bit more defined. Whereas in the tech space, I think the roles tend to be much more open, and they tend to have kind of fewer people with much more generalist skill sets doing a lot more work. And it's just really more open ended. It's a little more like choose your own adventure, which for me is like really exciting. Um, and then also, tech just treats you really well. Like you get paid probably twice as much as you would at most, even like high-end animation studios. You get to travel all over the world. Like I go to Stockholm probably twice a year. It might end up being more than that. We'll see. And it's just, you get all the free food. They treat you really well.
That'll get me, the free food, for sure.
I would too.
All right. So let's keep going on to audience questions. So let's see. Here is the first question. How do you take care of your mental health when you're pursuing your passion on top of a full-time or part-time job?
Oh God, I think that goes back to like being nice to yourself, like realizing you're not like a robot that just like is built to work. Like I would say probably try to really block out your time. So maybe like Wednesday nights I work on my portfolio, and then Sunday mornings I work on my portfolio, and then the other nights of the week I connect with my partner, or I meet up with my friends, or exercise, definitely exercise. Just realize that you are a whole person. And if you spend all of your time and all of your energy just like kind of fixated on the light at the end of the tunnel and trying to get to this like bright and shiny future that you want, and you like neglect every other part of your life, even if you get there, you're probably going to be miserable, Like there's so much more to life than work.
Yeah, and I feel like it's really hard just because like when you are working separately from your full-time or part-time job, you know that that's what you're going to want to do, and it'll get you to a whole place where that can be your full-time job, and then the extra other time is your relaxation time. But I feel like that journey in itself is so important to make sure that you don't overwork yourself, or burnout is not a good thing to get to. So I feel like taking care of yourself, is making time for yourself, is one of the most important things when doing that.
Yeah.
All right. So second question. Lauren, you've made so many pivots in your creative career. What was the hardest thing you found about being in those moments of transition, and how did you navigate that?
Ooh, I think the hardest thing is where you get to this moment where you realize what you're doing isn't what you really love, and you're kind of seeing over to the next hill at what you want to be doing. And if you start applying for jobs and you just get no response, and just the constant rejection, and just feeling like, oh no, I'm really bad at this. Like I'm bad at everything. Oh man. So I think, yeah, having those moments where you're like kind of back at the bottom and you're trying to claw your way back up to the top, that's hard.
Yeah, it's definitely hard. Do you have like any tips for making sure that you don't, like, because I definitely have felt that way before. It's like you get into, like, you have a really bad day at work, say, and then you're home and you're just like, everything is horrible, nothing went right, nothing in my life is going right. But like that train of thinking, I feel like is not good. So I feel like for me, interrupting that is a good way to go. But do you have any tips for like how to kind of get out of that?
It really helps to kind of like look back at your past successes and be like, well, I've kind of been in a place kind of like this before, and I did these things and I got out of it. Trying to give yourself a pep talk like, I've been here before, I'll be here again, and it was okay then, and it's okay now. And then also the question of like, being kind to yourself and like honoring your mental health and interrupting, being careful about like thinking too like kind of globally and universally in your thought processes. If you get to a point where you say like, I'm bad at this, I'm bad at everything. It's like, no, stop. You're not bad at everything. Don't globalize this. Don't universalize this. Like, there's one specific thing that you're actually not even bad at. You're just like new, and you just got to like work and improve it.
Yeah. And I really feel that like finding your strengths as well and like seeing the value in those for yourself is really important. Because like once you can see that, it's like, oh no, you know that you're good at this, at least one thing. So why wouldn't you be good at like most other things as well?
Yeah.
Just turning it on its head. Okay, so next question. Working in tech, are you able to feel creatively fulfilled? How do you keep pushing your art skills?
Yeah, I mean, for the place I'm at, I really have quite a bit of control and art direction over all of the effects that we build. So that feels pretty creatively fulfilling. Although, ultimately, like I'm still making an effect, and it's still like something that it only works like for the most part on your phone, and it kind of like is transformative to like you and your body, but it's not something that's going to tell an entire story. So I actually do like practice my own personal art on the side still. Currently I'm working on a short film that I've been developing for like the last year or so. I have a lot of like pictures of it on my Instagram. Instagram actually helps a lot, I think, for like helping kind of keep me on track. Like, I know I want to try to post something like once a week. So that means every weekend I need to like be working and making some progress on my film.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to post it, and like, who cares if anybody actually likes the post or not, or if anybody sees it, but like, I know it's like out there in the world, and it kind of like helps get me motivated to like get up and keep working on my personal work.
Yeah, I love the community for Instagram. I feel like it definitely is encouraging. Like not like there really aren't like when you're afraid to post something on Instagram, I feel like you shouldn't have those fears that much because usually people are just going to love it and like they're going to want to tell you that they love it. So I feel like once you start building that community, it's a really great place to be. Super encouraging.
Yeah. And it's just also great because you can show in progress work. It's like your website or ArtStation or something is where you put your like, finished ta-da portfolio pieces. But on Instagram, you can show like, the little steps along the way. And those little steps are actually like really important. Like if I was looking at an artist to hire, I wouldn't want to just see like all their finished work. Like it really helps to like see the process. And Instagram is just such a good place to put that process.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So next question, work question. How do you set your boundaries from work?
I try to be really careful not to check my email when I'm after hours. Sometimes it's hard, especially when I'm working with like Stockholm partners because they're on such a different timetable than I'm at. So yeah, I try to be conscientious about my work hours. It's tough sometimes.
Yeah. I feel like though it is really important to have those boundaries because when you set those boundaries, you have that time to creatively recharge and then you can actually do better work when you're at work than if you're working like 12 hours a day.
Oh yeah, no. And I would never work like 12 hours a day. It's more like I might like pull up my phone and see if like, oh, did the Indian marketing team message me? Oh, I should respond to that. It's like, all right, let's do it in the morning during my normal work hours. So for me, that's more the boundary that I sometimes have trouble not crossing. But I'm pretty good about like turning off my computer at 5 o'clock and not doing any more actual work. And it also helps that I love what I do. And like I actually really love my coworkers. So if somebody messages me after hours, I don't know. It doesn't offend me too much. It's like, oh, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm horrible because people are emailing me. I feel like that would be a little strong, but yeah. All right. So, anything you wish you could tell your past self or wish that you knew?
Yeah, I wish I could probably reiterate to my past self that like everything's gonna be okay and don't spend so much time stressing out. Because I spent like a lot of time very stressed out and like yeah, there were like a few years there where I would like have trouble sleeping at night because I would be like so stressed out about like is my career going the direction I want? Am I like I don't like what I'm doing and it feels like I can't get out of this hole. Um, so it's nice like from the vantage point I'm at now to be like I was never in a hole. I was like always like, climbing my way up the side of a mountain and I was making progress. But I think at the time it was hard to see the progress.
Yeah. No, I definitely resonate with that. All right. So our last question of the night, it brings it back to mentors. So this I feel like is something super important because mentors are the ones that you lean on and you really rely on to help you and they're there for you. So I feel like, or here is the last question. What mentors have you had and have you been mentoring others?
Yeah. I mean, I had some great teachers in grad school, especially. There was one stop motion teacher I had, Stephen Kyoto, who was just great. Like he kind of got me set up on one of my early jobs when I was compositing for that horror movie. And he's been someone I've kind of like kept in touch with off and on. Um, Honestly, a lot of my grad school teachers are the people who kind of connected me with my first jobs and my in the stop motion industry. Um, like one of my really like only interesting well no I have a couple film credits. One of my best film credits is The Little Prince, the animated film. Um, and I got that job directly through one of my grad school teachers. She just recommended me to her friend at a studio, and then they hired me on. So they've been super helpful. And then also I did the Women in Animation mentorship. Um, yeah, I was paired with Viviana Palacios. Oh gosh, I'm butchering her last name. But she was super, super helpful. She like kind of went through my whole portfolio and did a great job of like picking it apart and finding all of the little problems and helping me improve a bunch of old projects. And I think those improved portfolio items really had a big impact on me getting hired at Google.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that is amazing. Thank you so much for talking today. This is the end of our Q&A. Thanks everyone for joining us today for our 6th episode, and thanks Lauren again for being here and speaking. Please subscribe to this channel and our social media for future videos. We will see you next time. Bye guys.
Bye.